guys, tonight we're traveling somewhere you probably think of as all sun-bleached ruins, olive groves, and impossibly blue water. But Greece has a darker side that tourists scrolling through Santorini sunset photos never see. Beneath those ancient stones and behind those whitewashed walls, there are legends so old they've soaked into the ground itself. Stories that have survived empires rising and falling, whispered from generation to generation in dimly lit tavernas and forgotten mountain villages. You're going to walk these cursed streets with me, feel the Mediterranean wind carry warnings across the sea, and discover why the Greeks have spent millennia protecting themselves from things that lurk in the spaces between myth and reality. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your favorite urban legend from anywhere in the world. I love reading those. Now settle in. Get your blankets, dim your lights, and let's see how long you'd actually survive facing Greece's darkest folklore. You step off the plane in Thessaloniki, Macedonia's jewel, where Byzantine walls still stand and the scent of coffee drifts from every corner. It's late afternoon and the golden light makes everything look like a postcard. You've read about the White Tower, the waterfront, the vibrant nightlife. What you haven't read about, what the guidebooks conveniently skip, is Hippodrome Square, where your Airbnb happens to be located. Great price, amazing location, the host said. You wheel your suitcase across the square, noticing how locals seem to walk quickly here, eyes down, conversations hushed. The building you're staying in is modern, recent construction, all glass and steel trying desperately to look cosmopolitan. You don't know that you're standing on cursed ground, that the earth beneath your feet has been drinking blood since the Byzantine era. It started with a massacre centuries ago, when this was actually a hippodrome, a place of sport that became a killing ground. The details are fuzzy, lost to time, but the result is crystal clear. So many people died here, their blood seeping into the soil, that the ground itself became sacred and cursed in equal measure. The dead never left. They're still here, waiting, watching, demanding that their sacrifice be remembered. And here's the thing about curses in Greece. They don't care about your skepticism or your modern sensibilities. They just wait. You settle into your apartment on the 3rd floor, unpacking and checking your phone, planning tomorrow. Rose itinerary. Around 2 a.m. you wake to a sound, not loud but persistent. A creaking, a groaning. It's probably just the building settling, right? Old pipes, temperature changes, normal stuff. Except the building isn't old. It's barely 5 years old. The groaning intensifies and now you feel it. A vibration through the mattress, through the floor, like the earth itself is shifting beneath you. You sit up, heart hammering, and the vibration stops. Silence. Just the distant sound of a car passing. You lie back down, pull the covers up, tell yourself you're being ridiculous. But as you close your eyes, you swear you hear something else, faint, impossibly faint. The sound of screaming far below, muffled by centuries of concrete and forgetting. You don't sleep well. In the morning, over coffee at a nearby cafe, you mention the weird noises to a local. She goes quiet, stirring her Greek coffee slowly, and then she tells you, in 1978, a building on that very spot collapsed. 29 people died. Just fell into the earth. The curse, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. The dead from the massacre. They pull down anything built on top of them until people remember what happened here. You laugh nervously. Classic Mediterranean superstition, right? But she doesn't smile. She just says, "Don't stay there long," and changes the subject. You spend the rest of your coffee wondering if you can get a refund. That night, you decide to explore the upper city before it gets too late. Those winding streets in the Saloniki's old quarter where the tourists thin out and the real city reveals itself. The sun is setting, painting everything amber and rose, and you wander up steep stone steps, past old houses with wooden balconies, feeling like you've stepped back in time. You turn down a narrow street. Odos Mavris Petras, the street sign says, Blackstone Street. And something about it makes you pause. The stones underfoot are darker here, almost black, and the air feels different, heavier. The sunset light doesn't quite reach this street the way it should. But you're a traveler, an explorer, and you're not going to let atmosphere spook you. You walk down the street, noting the shuttered windows, the lack of people, the strange silence. It's only a few blocks, leading to what looks like an old archway. Easy. You'll walk through, see what's on the other side, loop back to the main road. No big deal. You step through the archway just as the last light fades from the sky, and on the other side, everything looks the same. The same street, the same old houses, the same Byzantine walls in the distance, but wrong. So profoundly wrong that your skin prickles instantly. There's no one here, not a single person. No car sounds, no voices, no music drifting from windows. The street lights are on, but they cast odd shadows, angles that don't quite make sense. You turn around to go back through the archway, but here's the problem. You're not entirely sure which archway you came through. They all look the same now. You pick one, walk through it, and find yourself on another empty street. Same city, same architecture, zero people. You try not to panic. You pull out your phone, no signal. The time display is glitching. Numbers flickering between different hours. You start walking, looking for anyone, any sign of life. But Thessaloniki has become a ghost city, a perfect replica with all the humanity scooped out. Your footsteps echo too loudly. Your breathing sounds amplified in the silence. And slowly, horribly, you realize that you can feel time moving differently here. What feels like 10 minutes of walking might be hours in the real world. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you've been here for hours and it's only felt like minutes. There's no way to know. The portal legend is whispered about in Thessaloniki, though never too loudly. Blackstone Street transforms at night, they say, into a doorway to someplace else, a shadow version of the city, empty and waiting. The only escape is finding the exact spot where you entered before dawn breaks in the real world. If you're still trapped when the sun rises, you're stuck forever, wandering empty streets in a city that looks like home but isn't. You don't know this yet. You're still trying to retrace your steps, fighting rising panic, when you notice that one of the street lights ahead is flickering in a pattern, almost like it's trying to communicate. You don't want to go toward it, but you don't have many options. As you approach, you see the archway beneath it, and something about it feels right, familiar. You run for it, lungs burning, and dive through just as you hear, behind you from the empty city, the sound of footsteps that aren't your own. You tumble out onto a normal street, gasping, and immediately you hear voices, car horns, life. Real Thessaloniki, solid and present. A couple walking past gives you an odd look, crazy tourist, and you're too relieved to care. You check your phone. 3 hours have passed. 3 hours of your life gone in what felt like 20 minutes. You don't go back to the upper city after dark. Some lessons you only need to learn once. Back in your cursed Airbnb, you lie awake, seriously considering that refund. But exhaustion wins eventually, and you drift off into uneasy sleep. Around 3 a.m., you wake to new sounds. Not from below this time, but from outside. Voices. Multiple voices overlapping, some wailing, some chanting in a language you don't recognize. You get up, go to the window, and look out onto the street. Across the square, there's a building, old, abandoned, clearly marked with no trespassing signs. 263 Vasilisis Olga Street, though you can't read the number from here. What you can see are the shadows moving past the windows. Figures, distinct human shapes, pacing back and forth on floors that should be empty. You watch, transfixed and horrified, as one of the shadows approaches a window and pauses. For just a moment, you think you see a face, pale, drawn, with hollow eyes that seem to look directly at you. Then it's gone, melted back into the darkness inside. The sounds continue, rising and falling, a chorus of trapped voices. The House of Lost Souls, locals call it. And now you understand why. Something terrible happened there. Accounts vary between massacre, cult ritual, or fire. But the result is always the same. Spirits trapped inside, unable to move on, replaying their final agonies every night. You close your curtains, get back in bed, and spend the rest of the night with your headphones in, playing white noise at maximum volume. Some things you just don't want to hear. Morning comes, eventually, it always does. Though sometimes you wonder if it will, and you decide you need to get out of Thessaloniki. The city is beautiful, historic, culturally rich, and also apparently determined to traumatize you. You book a ferry to the islands, figuring the Aegean Sea will be safer. Spoiler, it won't be. The ferry departs at dawn, and you stand on the deck watching Thessaloniki shrink behind you, the white tower catching the first light. The sea is calm, glassy, the kind of perfect Mediterranean morning that travel Instagram accounts exist for. Other passengers are inside, drinking coffee, checking their phones. You have the deck mostly to yourself. The sun climbs higher, turning the water from dark blue to brilliant turquoise, and you finally start to relax. This is what you came to Greece for, this peaceful, timeless beauty. You lean against the railing, close your eyes, feel the wind and spray on your face. Perfect. Then you hear it. A voice, distant but clear, calling out from the water. Your eyes snap open. About 50 meters from the boat, you see her. A woman treading water, long hair floating around her shoulders. She's impossibly beautiful even from this distance. Or how did she get out here? Did she fall from a boat? You look around for crew members to alert, but before you can shout, she speaks again, her voice carrying across the water with unnatural clarity. Zio Vasilias Alexandros? Is King Alexander alive? You freeze. Your Greek is terrible. You know maybe 10 words total, but you understood that. And suddenly, horribly, you remember a legend you read about once, half forgotten until this moment. Thessaloniki. Alexander the Great's half-sister, cursed with immortality, transformed into a mermaid when she threw herself into the sea. She appears to sailors and asks this one question. Get it wrong, and Zio Vasilias Alexandros, she asks again, and this time there's an edge to her voice. Impatience. Her beauty seems less enchanting now, more threatening. You rack your brain desperately for the correct response. Something about him, living and reigning, and what was it? Your mouth is dry. She's staring at you, waiting, and you can see her beginning to change. Her features sharpening, eyes darkening, the water around her starting to churn. He lives and reigns and conquers the world, you shout in English, because your Greek isn't good enough and you're panicking. Zeke Vasilevi. Those two words you manage, the rest tumbling out in English. He lives and reigns. For a moment, the longest moment of your life, she just stares at you. The water continues churning. Her face is caught between beauty and monstrosity. Then slowly, impossibly, she smiles. Not a warm smile. Not reassuring. But accepting. The water calms. And she sinks beneath the surface without a word, without a ripple. Gone as suddenly as she appeared. You stand there shaking, gripping the railing, and when you finally turn around, there's an elderly Greek man standing in the doorway to the cabin. He's watching you with knowing eyes. Close one, he says in accented English, then heads back inside. You don't go back on deck for the rest of the journey. Some fresh air isn't worth dying for. The ferry docks at a small island. Not one of the famous ones, not Santorini or Mykonos, but a quieter place where tourism hasn't quite consumed everything. You rent a small apartment, buy groceries, try to settle your nerves. That evening you sit on your small balcony, eating cheese and olives, drinking wine, watching the sun set over the harbor. This is better. Calmer. Maybe your Thessaloniki experience was just bad luck. A concentration of weirdness. The islands will be different. Around midnight you hear the knocking. 3 sharp raps on your door. You're not expecting anyone. You don't know anyone here. But maybe it's the landlord or something. You get up, go to the door, your hand reaching for the handle. Then you freeze. Something stops you. Some instinct you can't name. You don't open it. The knocking comes again. 3 more raps. Harder this time. And with it, a voice. Your mother's voice, speaking your name, asking you to let her in. Your mother, who is, last you checked, several thousand miles away in another country entirely. Your hand drops from the handle. The voice continues, pleading now, still using your mother's tone perfectly. Please let me in. I'm so tired. I've come such a long way. But you don't open that door. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, you remember reading about the Vrikolakas, the Greek vampire, though vampire isn't quite the right word. These aren't elegant bloodsuckers in capes. These are bloated corpses that rise from their graves, knock on doors, and call out in the voices of loved ones. If you answer on the first knock, you're doomed. You'll sicken and die, and probably become one yourself. You back away from the door, heart pounding. The knocking comes a 3rd time, and the voice changes. No longer your mother, but your own voice, calling to you from the other side of the door. Let me in, let me in, let me in. It's the most disturbing thing you've ever heard. Your own voice pleading with increasing desperation. Then, finally, silence. You wait 5 minutes, 10, before creeping to the door and peering through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway is empty, lit by a single flickering bulb. But on your doorstep, there's something. A wet mark, dark and viscous, like blood mixed with something thicker. You don't open that door for the rest of the night. In the morning, the mark is gone, but you know what you saw. You ask the landlord about it casually, describing what you heard. She goes pale, makes the sign of the cross, and mutters something in Greek you don't catch. Then she tells you, someone died in the building next door 2 weeks ago, buried quickly due to the heat, and there have been problems, knockings, voices. A child in a ground floor apartment developed a mysterious illness. The family called in a priest who performed some kind of exorcism, but these things are hard to stop once they start. Never answer the first knock, she tells you firmly, or the second. Wait for the third always. You nod like this is totally normal advice. File it away in your rapidly expanding mental folder of Greek survival tips. That night, because apparently you're a glutton for punishment, you wake to a weight on your chest. You can't move, can't breathe. Your eyes are open, you're conscious, but your body is completely paralyzed. And there's someone in the room with you. You can't turn your head to see, but you know they're there. You can feel their presence, heavy and malevolent, pressing down on you. The air smells wrong, like decay and damp earth. You try to scream, but nothing comes out. Try to move your fingers, your toes, anything, nothing. The weight increases, crushing your chest, squeezing the air from your lungs. Your vision starts to darken at the edges. This is it, you think distantly. This is how it ends. Killed by a Greek vampire on a vacation that was supposed to be relaxing. Then from somewhere, you remember. Prayer. Orthodox Christianity. Protection. You can't speak, but you can think. And you force your mind to form the words, "Please God, protect me, send this thing away. I don't even care which God at this point, just help." And maybe it works. Or maybe the Vricola just gets bored. But suddenly the weight lifts. You gasp, sucking in air, and movement returns to your limbs. You lunge for the light switch, flood the room with brightness. Empty. Completely empty. But the smell lingers, and on your chest, there are marks. Not bruises yet, but the beginning of them. The shape of hands pressed into your skin. You book a different apartment the next morning. New building on the other side of town, on the 3rd floor. Vrikolakas supposedly don't like climbing. With garlic hung over the door because at this point you're willing to try anything. The new landlord takes one look at the garlic and nods approvingly. "Smart," he says. No irony, no skepticism, just approval. Greece is really something else. It's late December when you arrive, because apparently your timing is as cursed as your luck. And the locals keep mentioning the 12 days. You assume they mean Christmas celebrations, holiday markets, that sort of thing. And sure, there are celebrations, but there's also an undercurrent of tension you can't quite place. People are hurrying home before dark, keeping fires burning constantly, hanging weird things, colanders, sieves, straw crosses on their doors. You ask what's going on, and an old woman explains. The Kalakanseroi, the Christmas goblins. You laugh because surely she's joking. She doesn't laugh back. She tells you, from December 25th to January 6th, these creatures emerge from underground where they spend the rest of the year trying to saw down the world tree. Frustrated that the tree heals itself every Christmas, they surge to the surface to cause chaos. They're small, ugly, grotesque things with animal features, goat legs, boar tusks, burning eyes, and while they're more mischievous than murderous, their presence brings misfortune. They spoil food, break things, cause illness, and generally ruin the holidays. You're skeptical until December 25th arrives and things start happening. Small things at first. Your milk spoils overnight even though the fridge is working fine. You keep hearing scratching sounds from the walls and ceiling. Objects aren't where you left them. Your phone charger migrates. From the bedside table to the bathroom, your keys end up in the fridge. Then the sounds get louder. Giggling, chit-tearing, strange whispers in a language that sounds like Greek played backward. You see shadows moving in your peripheral vision, quick, darting movements of small bodies. On December 28th, you wake to find that something has urinated in your fireplace, which you'd left unlit because it's not that cold. And the smell is ungodly, not just urine, but something fouler, like rot and sulfur combined. You gag, open all the windows, and realize that every single food item in your apartment has gone bad. The bread is moldy, the fruit is rotting. The cheese has developed a truly impressive collection of fungi. Even the sealed crackers have somehow gone stale. This is beyond normal food spoilage. This is targeted, malicious. You go to the store for replacements, and the cashier, seeing your Greek address on your card, asks if you're having trouble with them. You nod wearily, and she tells you, place a colander on your doorstep. They can only count to 2, so they'll spend all night trying to count the holes and be trapped there until sunrise. It sounds insane, but you're desperate. You buy a colander, place it on your doorstep that night, and the sounds stop. Completely. It's the first peaceful night you've had since Christmas. The morning. The colander is exactly where you left it. But there are tiny scratches all around it, hundreds of them, like small claws were scrabbling at the ground in frustration. January 6th arrives, Epiphany, and the local priest goes through the neighborhood sprinkling holy weight tear and basil, blessing each home. When he reaches yours, he spends extra time there, murmuring prayers, making the sign of the cross repeatedly. Afterward, he tells you they're gone now, back on Durground. You should have no more trouble. And he's right. The scratching stops. The giggling fades. Your food stops spoiling inexplicably. The Calicanceroi have returned to the underworld to start sawing at the world tree again, preparing for next Christmas. You have 11 months before they return. You plan to be far away by then. Maybe Antarctica. Pretty sure they don't have Christmas goblins in Antarctica, though at this point you wouldn't bet money on it. You decide to spend late January by the coast. Surely the seaside will be peaceful, you think, having learned absolutely nothing from your experiences so far. You find a small village with a beautiful beach, crystal clear water, those characteristic white pebbles and smooth rocks. It's off-season, so there aren't many tourists, just locals and the occasional hardy traveler like yourself. The landscape is stunning. Rough cliffs, hardy olive trees, and water so blue, it looks photoshopped. You could spend hours just sitting on these rocks, watching the waves, and honestly, that's your plan. It's dawn when you see them. 3 women, impossibly beautiful, emerging from the sea. At first you think they're early morning swimmers, but something's off. They're too graceful, moving with a fluidity that seems almost inhuman. Their hair is long and loose, and even from a distance, you can hear them singing. A wordless melody that makes your chest ache with something you can't name. Longing, maybe, or sorrow. They don't see you, perched up on your rock, half hidden by shadows. They begin to dance in a circle on the beach, bare feet leaving no prints in the wet sand. The Nereids. Of course. Because why wouldn't you stumble upon dangerous sea nymphs during your supposedly relaxing vacation? You know you should leave. Everything you've learned in Greece has taught you that beauty plus supernatural attracts danger. But you're frozen, watching. Their dance is mesmerizing, their song pulling at something deep in your chest. It would be so easy to climb down from your rock, approach them, ask to join their circle. They'd probably welcome you, probably. but some last thread of survival instinct keeps you still and quiet. You're barely breathing, terrified that even the smallest sound will alert them to your presence. One of them, the tallest, with hair that seems to catch and hold the dawn light, stops dancing and turns. She looks directly at where you're hiding. For a moment, you're certain she sees you, that you're about to experience whatever happens when you interrupt Nereids at their dawn ritual. Nothing good, you're absolutely sure. But then she turns back to her sisters, says something in ancient-sounding Greek, and they all slip back into the water, disappearing beneath the surface without a splash. You stay on your rock for another hour, shaking, before you finally dare to climb down and hurry back to your room. You don't go to that beach again. Some sunrises aren't worth witnessing. Later in the village, you mention casually that you saw something strange at dawn. Beautiful women in the water, and the locals get very serious very quickly. The Nereids, they confirm, and you're lucky you stayed hidden. Being seen by them, disturbing their dancing or bathing, drinking from their sacred springs without permission. All of these can bring curses. Sudden illness, paralysis, madness. Children who see them sometimes develop mysterious ailments that doctors can't diagnose. Men have been known to follow them into the water and drown, or come back changed, speaking in riddles no longer quite themselves. The locals have a term for it. Touched by the Nereids? It's not a good thing. You ask what you should have done if they'd seen you, and the answer is simple. Pray and run. In that order, you move inland after that, figuring that if the sea is dangerous and cities are haunted, maybe the countryside will be safer. Spoiler, it won't be. You rent a car and drive through Epirus, a region of stunning natural beauty. Mountains, gorges, traditional stone villages that look like they've been frozen in time. The landscape is green and dramatic, and for the first time since arriving in Greece, you feel like maybe things will be okay. You stop in the town of Arda, planning to see the famous bridge, a beautiful stone arch spanning the Araxos River. It's one of Greece's most iconic landmarks, graceful and ancient, the kind of place that makes you understand why people travel. But when you ask for directions, the locals get this look. Sadness, discomfort, something else you can't quite identify. They give you directions, but also warnings. Approach with respect. Don't joke about the bridge. Don't disparage it. You nod, confused but compliant. When you reach the bridge, you understand. There's a plaque with a story, and multiple locals have gathered. Not tourists, locals, laying flowers at the bridge's base, touching the stone gently. You read the legend, and it's darker than anything you've encountered so far. The bridge was built on a human sacrifice. The master builder's wife, immured alive in the foundation, sealed into the stone while she could still breathe and scream and curse. She cursed the bridge to tremble like her heart, to throw down travelers like her falling hair. But then, remembering her brother might cross it someday, she changed the curse to protect it, making the condition something impossible. The bridge has stood for centuries on her sacrifice, her suffering literally holding it up. You touch the stone, and it's warm from the sun, but for just a moment you swear you feel something else. A tremor, faint but distinct, like a heartbeat still pulsing within. At night, locals say, you can hear her weeping. You don't stay to find out if that's true. Some legends are too sad to chase. You cross the bridge, because you have to, because refusing would be its own kind of disrespect. But you do it quietly, reverently, thinking about the woman whose life was payment for this structure's stability. Greece keeps teaching you the same lesson in different ways. Everything here has a cost. Every beautiful thing is built on sacrifice or tragedy or both. Nothing is free, not even beauty. Your drive takes you to Crete next, the largest Greek island, home to one of the most famous legends of all, the Minotaur. You visit the ruins at Knossos, walking through the remains of the Minoan palace with its maze-like layout. The sun is bright. Tourists are taking selfies. Tour guides are explaining about ancient Minoan civilization in multiple languages. It's all very civilized and historical and safe. But as you wander deeper into the ruins, away from the main tourist paths, the atmosphere changes. The passages get narrower, the shadows deeper. You turn a corner and suddenly you're alone. No tourists, no voices, just ancient stone and silence. For just a moment, you let yourself imagine what it was like for those 14 Athenian youths, 7 boys, 7 girls, sent here as tribute every 9 years. Walking into a labyrinth they could never escape, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, a creature with a bull's head and a hunger for human flesh was stalking them. The terror must have been absolute. The passages would all look the same, turning and doubling back. No natural light reaching the center, just the sound of hooves on stone growing closer. The monsters breathing echoing off walls. That terrible bellowing roar. You turn another corner and walk straight into a dead end. Your heart jumps, and you laugh at yourself. It's just ruins. The Minotaur was killed by Theseus thousands of years ago, slain in the heart of the labyrinth. It's just a story. You turn around to retrace your steps, and for a second, just a second, you could swear you hear it. A sound like heavy breathing, like something large moving through stone paths. Sages. You walk faster, then faster still, until you burst out into the sunlight and tourists and normality. Just your imagination, you tell yourself. Just the power of suggestion in a place heavy with legend. But your hands are shaking and you don't go back into the deeper passages. Some places carry their stories too well. While you're in Crete, you decide to visit another famous site, the Dictyon Cave on the Lassithi Plateau, where Zeus was supposedly born and hidden from his father Cronus. It's a tourist attraction now, with paths and lights safe and accessible. You join a tour group, descending into the cave, listening to the guide explain the mythology. Zeus was born here, hidden by his mother Rhea, raised by nymphs and fed by the goat Amalthea, while warrior spirits called Curetes clash their shields to hide his cries. It's a nice story, dramatic and foundational to Greek mythology. The cave itself is beautiful. Stalactites and stalagmites, underground pools, that particular underground coolness and smell of deep earth. The tour group moves on, but you linger and taking photos, enjoying the solitude. That's when you hear it. A rhythmic pounding, like metal on metal, echoing from deeper in the cave. The shields, you think, with a chill. The Curetes' shields. But that's insane. It's probably just water dripping in a particular pattern, or equipment from cave maintenance, or something completely mundane. You should catch up with your tour group. You definitely should not move toward the sound, deeper into the cave, away from the lit paths. Naturally, you move toward the sound. Because every character in every horror story makes terrible decisions, and you're apparently no exception. The passages get narrower, the light from the tourist path fading behind you. The pounding gets louder, more distinct. Definitely rhythmic, definitely deliberate. And then you see nothing. An empty chamber, water pooling on the floor, strange rock formations that look almost like figures in the dim light. The pounding stops. The silence is total, profound. The kind of silence that feels like a presence in itself. You feel watched. Not by people, by something else, something old and protective and not particularly happy about your presence. The air pressure changes, or maybe it's just your ears adjusting, but suddenly you feel like you're intruding on sacred space, like you've walked into a temple without permission. You back away slowly, eyes on the shadows that seem to move at the edges of your vision, and you don't turn around until you're back on the lit path. Later, back at your hotel, you research the cave and find stories. People getting disoriented, losing time, experiencing visions. The cave is still sacred, some say, still protected by those ancient guardians. Zeus may have left, grown up and overthrown his father and taken his place as king of the gods, but the spirits remain. Some places never stop being holy, never stop being protected. You add it to your mental list. Cursed buildings, portal streets, ghost houses, vampire islands, goblin-infested apartments, sea nymph beaches, sacrifice bridges, monster labyrinths, and now guardian caves. Greece is really just a collection of places that want you dead in increasingly creative ways. You spend a few days exploring southern Crete, visiting small villages and remote areas. One evening, your GPS takes you past an old medieval castle, one of many scattered across the island, ruins from centuries of occupation and war. You pull over to take photos because it's genuinely beautiful in the dying light, all crumbling stone and wild grass and history. But as you're lining up a shot, you notice other people there. Locals, quite a few of them, standing around the castle's perimeter. They're not tourists. They have the look of people who belong here, who've come with a purpose. Some are eld early, holding what look like prayer beads. Others are younger, watching the castle with tense faces. You approach one of them, ask if there's some kind of event happening. The woman, middle-aged, dressed in black, looks at you with surprise. You don't know what day it is? She asks in English. You admit you've lost track of dates. She tells you it's the anniversary, the battle. Every year on this date they come to witness. Witness what? You ask. The ghosts, she says simply. The Phantom Army. Every year at the same time, the soldiers who died here replay their final battle. You can see them, hear them, even smell the gunpowder and blood. It's not a story, she insists, seeing your skeptical expression. It's real. They've documented it, recorded it. The dead here are trapped, fighting forever, unable to rest. You're about to politely excuse yourself because while you've seen some weird stuff, full-on ghost armies seem like a stretch. When someone shouts, everyone turns to look at the castle. At first you don't see anything, then you hear it. Distant sounds growing closer, shouting, the clash of weapons, the thunder of horses' hooves. And then you see them, faint at first, like heat shimmer, but growing more solid. Figures, dozens of them, engaged in combat. Soldiers in period clothing, some on horseback, some on foot, fighting with desperate intensity. The sounds grow louder. Gunfire screaming, metal on metal. The chaos of battle condensed into this one location. It's the most terrifying thing you've seen in Greece. And that's saying something, because these aren't just shadows or sounds. They're detailed, specific, individual people reliving their deaths. You can see their faces, twisted with fear and determination. You can hear individual voices crying out in Cretan dialect. The smell hits you, gunpowder, sharp and acrid, and underneath it something coppery and thick. Blood. You're watching people die over and over, trapped in the moment of their greatest trauma. Some of the ghosts seem aware of the living observers, turning to look, raising weapons as if to charge. The woman next to you grips your arm. "Don't run," she whispers. "Show respect. They're our ancestors." You stand frozen watching this impossible scene, until gradually, over the course of maybe an hour, the manifestation fades. The sounds diminish. The figures become translucent, and finally there's nothing but the castle ruins in the dusk, and a group of locals, quietly crying. They lay flowers at the castle's base, say prayers, and slowly disperse. You sit in your car for a long time before you can drive away, trying to process what you just witnessed. The trauma of history, so intense it left a scar on reality itself. The dead, unable to move on from their final moments. Greece doesn't just remember its history is still happening, layered on top of the present, bleeding through at particular times and places. You need somewhere positive after that, somewhere blessed instead of cursed. So you head to Rhodes, the island of the sun. Rhodes is famous for its sunshine over 300 days a year, and according to legend, that's because it belongs to Helios, the sun god. The myth says that when the gods were dividing the world, Helios was absent, driving his chariot across the sky. When he returned, there was no land left for him. But rather than allow an injustice, he pointed out an island rising from the sea, and Zeus granted it to him. Rhodes emerged from the waves as Helios's sacred domain, blessed with eternal sunshine. And it does feel different here. Lighter, warmer, more welcoming than anywhere else you've been in Greece. The sun seems to shine more directly, more personally. The locals will tell you that Helios still watches over Rhodes, that the island maintains its blessed status. Fishermen report seeing golden lights over the water at dawn. The sun god beginning his daily journey. There are certain spots on the island considered particularly sacred, sun-blessed places where prayers are supposedly more likely to be heard. You visit one, a rocky outcrop overlooking the sea, and you have to admit, there's something about the quality of light here, the way the sun seems to embrace the land, that feels special. Not threatening, not cursed, just blessed. It's the first place in Greece where you actually relax. You spend your days on beaches, exploring the medieval old town, eating exceptional food and not getting cursed or chased or terrorized even once. It's genuinely lovely. Of course, it can't last. Because this is Greece, and nowhere stays peaceful for long. You visit the harbor area where the Colossus of Rhodes once stood, the massive statue of Helios that was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It stood for only 56 years before an earthquake brought it down in 226 BCE, and it lay in ruins for nearly 900 years before being sold for scrap. The harbor tour guide explains all this with obvious pride and sadness mixed together. The Colossus was a testament to Rhodes' power and gratitude to Helios. But the oracle at Delphi warned against rebuilding it after the earthquake. Something about offending Helios, though the details are murky. Some of the statue's pieces are supposedly still buried beneath the harbor and city, holding divine energy. Locals sometimes report strange golden glows from certain areas of the harbor at dawn and dusk. and fishermen claim their nets get caught on large bronze objects deep underwater that cannot be moved. That night, you're walking along the harbor around sunset when you see it. A glow beneath the water, subtle but distinct, a golden luminescence that seems to pulse gently. Other people are around, but no one else seems to notice. You crouch down, getting closer to the water's edge, watching this big, possible light. It's beautiful, mesmerizing, and you're reaching toward it before you realize what you're doing. Your fingers are inches from the water when someone grabs your shoulder. You turn to find an elderly Greek man, weather-beaten and serious, shaking his head. "Don't touch," he says. "It's not for us, just watch." You pull your hand back, and the old man releases you and walks away without another word. You watch the glow for another few minutes until it fades, leaving just normal harbor water reflecting the sunset. You're not sure what you almost touched. Residual divine energy from the fallen Colossus. Some piece of Helios's power still lingering in the bronze beneath the waves. But you're glad you didn't make contact. Some things are meant to be observed, not possessed. Some blessings aren't meant for mortals. Rhodes has been kind to you, and you're not about to ruin it by overstepping. You return to the mainland, to Athens, where you plan to spend your final week in Greece before heading home. Athens is a mix of ancient and modern archaeological sites surrounded by urban sprawl. History layered on top of history. It's also where you encounter one of Greece's most pervasive beliefs, the evil eye, the mythology. You've seen the blue eye amulets everywhere, hanging in cars, worn as jewelry, displayed in shop windows. But you haven't really thought about what they mean. You think about it now because you've become unlucky. It started subtly. You tripped on flat pavement and twisted your ankle. Your laptop stopped working for no apparent reason. You got lost in a city where you'd had no trouble navigating before. A bird shit on your head, which is supposed to be lucky but didn't feel lucky. You developed a splitting headache that won't go away despite painkillers. Every small thing that could go wrong is going wrong. And you're starting to feel like you're surrounded by a cloud of misfortune. You mention this to your new host, a woman in her 60s who's been renting rooms to travelers for decades. She takes one look at you and says, "Someone gave you the mati, the evil eye." She explains, when someone looks at you with envy or excessive admiration or jealousy, they can curse you, often unintentionally. It's not always malicious, but the result is the same. Bad luck, illness, accidents, a general feeling that everything is falling apart. You're especially vulnerable if you're happy or successful or attractive, because happiness attracts envious stares. She asks if you've posted any particularly, happy photos on social media lately, any vacation shots where you look especially joyful. You have, of course. Lots of them. That's probably what did it, she says. Someone saw your photos, felt a twinge of jealousy, and without meaning to, cursed you. She offers to perform the zemetiasma, the ritual to remove the evil eye. You're skeptical but desperate, so you agree. She brings you into her kitchen, fills a bowl with water, and begins dripping olive oil into it while whispering prayers you can't quite hear. The oil forms patterns in the water, shapes that apparently mean something to her, because she nods, satisfied. "Yes," she says, strong curse, "but we'll fix it." She continues the ritual, making the sign of the cross, praying in a mix of Greek and what sounds like much older language. And here's the weird part. You start yawning. uncontrollably, over and over, tears streaming down your face from the force of the yawns. "Good," she says. "It's leaving." When she's done, she disposes of the water carefully, not down the sink, but outside, far from the house, and gives you a blue eye amulet to wear. "Keep this with you," she instructs, "and be careful what you post online. Happiness attracts the eye." You thank her, feeling slightly ridiculous, but here's the thing. Your headache is gone. Completely gone for the first time in 3 days. And over the next few days, your luck normalizes. Things stop going wrong. Your laptop mysteriously starts working again. You don't trip or get lost or experience any bizarre mishaps. Coincidence? Maybe. But you keep wearing that blue eye amulet, and you're a lot more careful about posting happy vacation photos. You take a day trip to Thessaly, the region northeast of Athens, known for its distinctive landscape. The Meteora monasteries, perched on top of towering rock formations. The fertile plains surrounded by mountains. Thessaly has been famous since ancient times for something else. Witches. This is the land of the Thessalian sorceresses, women said to possess the most powerful magic in the ancient world. The ability to draw down the moon, control weather, brew potions, curse enemies, communicate with the dead, shapeshift. In Greek and Roman literature, if you needed serious magic done, you went to Thessaly. The tradition hasn't entirely died. In small mountain villages, there are still women, usually elderly, living alone or on the margins, who are known to have the knowledge. People come to them for healing, for love potions, for help with problems that normal solutions can't fix. They also come for curses, though no one will admit that part out loud. You hear stories. A man who wronged one of these women found his crops failing for 3 years straight. A woman who insulted one developed a mister. I use illness that no doctor could diagnose or treat. These aren't fairy tales. These are things that happened recently that people in the villages will swear are true. You're having coffee in a small Thessalian village when an old woman at the next table catches your eye. There's something about her. A sharpness, an intensity, a sense of someone who sees more than most people. She's dressed in black, traditional, her hands gnarled but steady as she stirs her coffee. She says something to you in Greek. You don't understand, and you tell her so, apologizing for your terrible Greek. She switches to English, heavily accented but clear. You've been carrying others' eyes. The Mati, you realize. She knows. You've also been carrying their dead, she continues. So many dead following you. You've walked through their places and they've noticed you. Your skin prickles. You've been all over Greece, visiting exactly the kinds of places where tragedy occurred. Of course the dead noticed. You need protection, she says, and pulls something from her pocket. A small cloth bag, tied with red string. Keep this with you, don't open it, just keep it close. She slides it across the table and you take it reflexively. It's light, filled with something that rustles. Herbs maybe, or seeds. You try to pay her, but she waves you off. Just go carefully, she says. Greece remembers everything. The land remembers, the stones remember. All those dead you've walked among, they remember too. She finishes her coffee and leaves, and you sit there holding this little cloth bag that a possible witch just gave you, wondering what exactly is in it and whether it's protection or a curse itself. You keep it anyway. At this point, what's one more supernatural object? Your trip is winding down and you decide to visit the Ionian Islands on your way back to Athens for your flight home. You take a ferry to Paxos, a small, beautiful island known for its olive groves and hidden beaches. The legend says that Poseidon created Paxos by striking Corfu with his trident, breaking off a piece to create a private paradise for himself and his lover, the nymph Amphitrite. The island's numerous sea caves are supposedly their sacred chambers, places where mortals shouldn't intrude. You rent a small boat to explore the coastline, floating past dramatic cliffs and crystalline water. The caves are stunning, carved by millennia of waves, some large enough to sail into. You anchor near one that's particularly beautiful, water glowing that impossible electric blue that seems unique to Greek caves. The cave mouth is inviting, and the water is calm enough that you could swim inside, explore a bit. You're pulling on your snorkel when you hear it, singing. Beautiful, ethereal singing, echoing from inside the cave. But there's no one around. You're alone on this stretch of coast. The singing continues rising and falling, and you're suddenly very aware that you're about to enter one of Poseidon's sacred caves without permission. The singing could be Amphitrite or the Nereids, or any number of sea spirits who definitely don't want you there. You decide in what is possibly your first genuinely smart decision in Greece, not to enter the cave. You pull up anchor and move to a different location, one without mysterious singing. As you motor away, you glance back and see something that makes your blood run cold. A figure, briefly visible in the cave mouth, watching you leave. You can't make out details, just a silhouette, too tall and too still to be entirely human. Then you blink, and it's gone. You don't go into any more caves. Some boundaries shouldn't be crossed. Some sacred spaces should remain sacred. Your final day in Greece, you visit Lefkada, another Ionian island, to see Cape Lefkatas, a dramatic white cliff that towers over the sea. It's stunningly beautiful, the kind of place that makes you understand why ancient people thought gods lived here. It's also known as Lover's Leap, the place where the poet Sappho supposedly threw herself to her death after being rejected by her beloved. The Cape has a dark history. Centuries of people leaping from this cliff, either as ancient ritual or in romantic despair. Local legend says their spirits remain, and that the cliff itself carries a dangerous energy, a pull toward the edge. You should feel uplifted. It's your last day. You've survived Greece, despite everything it threw at you. And you're standing in an objectively beautiful place. But instead, you feel profoundly sad. Melancholy settles over you like a weight, and you find yourself drifting closer to the cliff edge, looking down at the waves far below. It would be so easy, you think distantly. Just a step, just letting go. The wind would carry you down, and the water would be cold and shocking, and then it would be over, all of it, all the stress and fear and constant supernatural threats. You jerk back from the edge, heart pounding. What were you just thinking? That wasn't you. That was the place, the accumulated grief of all those who died here, the spirits that locals warn about. You back away quickly, putting distance between yourself and that cliff, and the sadness lifts as you move away. By the time you reach your car, you feel normal again, shaken but yourself. Cape Lefkatas almost got you, almost added you to its collection of tragedy, but you escaped. Barely. You drive back slowly, processing everything. Greece has tried to kill you in so many ways. Cursed buildings, dimensional portals, haunted houses, vengeful mermaids, vampires, Christmas goblins, dangerous nymphs, ghost armies, guardian caves, spectral ships, divine tests, curses, and now psychologically manipulative cliffs. You've been marked by the evil eye, possibly cursed by a witch, or possibly protected. You're still not sure. And you're carrying a mysterious bag of herbs and a blue eye amulet and a whole collection of trauma disguised as vacation memories. But you're alive. You survived. Not everyone who encounters Greece's darker side does. You spend your last night in Athens in a modern hotel, high floor, surrounded by concrete and steel and nothing supernatural at all. You pack carefully, making sure you have the blue eye amulet and the witch's protection bag tucked safely in your carry-on. You take one last look at the Acropolis, lit up against the night sky, and you feel a strange mix of relief and affection. Greece tried hard to kill you, but it's also been the most intense, bizarre, terrifying educational experience of your life. You've learned things you never wanted to know. You've seen things you can never unsee. You've walked through layers of history and mythology that are still living, still active, still dangerous. And somehow, despite everything, part of you already knows you'll come back. Maybe not soon. Maybe after you've recovered and convinced yourself it wasn't that bad, the way memories soften with time and distance. But you'll come back because Greece gets into your blood. The legends aren't just stories, they're alive, woven into the landscape and the culture and the very stones. To visit Greece is to walk alongside its myths, to brush against the supernatural, to risk becoming a story yourself. It's dangerous and beautiful and absolutely unforgettable. As you drift towards sleep in your safe modern hotel room, you think about all the people who never made it out of their stories, immured in bridges, devoured by monsters, drowned by mermaids, cursed into vampirism, trapped in dimensional portals. You think about the spirits that still linger, the dead that haven't left, the gods that might still be watching. And you're grateful, genuinely, profoundly grateful, that you're going home with nothing worse than some strange dreams and an inexplicable collection of protective amulets. Greece doesn't give up its travelers easily. Even now, thousands of miles and dozens of hours of flight away, you carry pieces of it with you. The memory of the bleeding stones tremors beneath your feet, the empty streets of the shadow dimension, the mermaid's transforming face in the Aegean, the weight of the Vrikolakas pressing down on your chest, the grotesque giggling of the Kallikonsaroy, the Nereids' mesmerizing dance, the terrible sadness of the immured wife in the Bridge of Arta, the chaos of the ghost army replaying its eternal battle, the golden glow of Helios's sacred remnants, the feeling of the evil eye's curse lifting in a stranger's kitchen, the witch's knowing eyes and cryptic warn, ings, the singing from Poseidon's cave, the dangerous pull of Sappho's cliff, all of it layered in your memory like sediment, like the layers of Greece's own history pressing down on itself, mixing myth and reality until they're indistinguishable. You understand now why Greeks still believe, why they still hang garlic and blue eyes, why they still warn their children about answering the first knock, why they still make offerings at certain springs and avoid certain caves. Because in Greece, the supernatural isn't separate from daily life. It's woven through it, inseparable. The myths aren't ancient history, they're present tense, continuing, ongoing. Every Greek learns this from childhood, grows up with one foot in the modern world and one in the world of legends and spirits and old powers that never really left. You learned it the hard way, as a tourist who thought you were visiting a postcard country and instead found yourself navigating a living mythology. Your plane lifts off, Athens shrinking below you, and you press your face to the window, watching the islands scattered across the Aegean like jewels. From up here, Greece looks peaceful, beautiful, innocent. From up here, you can't see the shadows in the alleys, the things that wake when the sun goes down, the spirits that never left, the curses that wait patiently, the creatures that still hunt in wild places. From up here, it looks like paradise. But you know better now. You know what lives between the stones, what swims beneath the waves, what walks the mountain paths and knocks on doors at midnight. You know that every beautiful beach might have nereids dancing at dawn, that every old building might house restless dead, that every bridge might be built on sacrifice, that every cave might be sacred, that every smile from a stranger might carry the evil eye. You also know that despite everything, despite the terror and the curses and the very real danger, there's something beautiful about a place where myths are still alive, where the gods haven't entirely abandoned their temples, where the supernatural is acknowledged rather than dismissed, where the ancient and the modern exist in complicated, dangerous, fascinating balance. Greece forces you to expand your definition of possible, to accept that reality is bigger and stranger than you thought, that there are things beyond rationality, beyond science, beyond the tidy categories you use to make sense of the world. It's uncomfortable and terrifying, and also kind of magnificent. To walk where gods walked, to see where heroes fought monsters, to stand in places so saturated with story that the boundary between myth and reality dissolves entirely. That's not something you can experience just anywhere. That's Greece's particular gift and particular danger. The flight attendant brings you a drink, and you accept it gratefully, settling back into your seat. You're safe now, you tell yourself. Returning to a world where buildings don't collapse from ancient curses, where streets don't become dimensional portals, where beautiful women in the water are just swimmers, not vengeful immortals, where knocking on your door means a neighbor or delivery per son, not an undead creature calling in your mother's voice, where Christmas brings presents and cookies, not grotesque goblins urinating in your fireplace. Normal world, safe world, boring world maybe, but boring sounds pretty good right now, except you keep touching the blue eye amulet around your neck and the witch's protection bag in your pocket, and you know you won't take them off, not anytime soon, because somewhere in the deepest part of you, in the place that still wakes up at 3 a.m. wondering if that sound was just the building settling, you're not entirely sure you've left Greece's supernatural sphere of influence. The legends follow their believers, the stories travel with those who know them, and you've walked too deep into those old stories to walk away unmarked. You've been seen by the dead, touched by spirits, cursed and uncursed, warned by witches, and tested by forces that most people never encounter. That changes you. That marks you as someone who knows, someone who's crossed the boundary and come back. The supernatural recognizes its own. You think the creatures and spirits and curses of Greece will just let you go because you got on a plane? Greece doesn't work that way. Greece remembers. The land remembers, the stones remember, the sea remembers, and most of all, the stories remember. You've become part of the story now. The tourist who encountered the legends, who walked through haunted streets and cursed sites and sacred caves, who answered or didn't answer when supernatural things called your name. You survived, which is worth something. But survival doesn't mean escape. Not really. Not when the myths are this old, this powerful, this persistent. You're carrying Greece with you now, whether you want to or not. In your amulets and protection bags, yes, but more than that. In your awareness, in your knowledge, in the part of you that will always glance twice at beautiful women near water, that will never answer the first knock, that will recognize the signs of the evil eye, that will respect wild places and sacred spaces, that will believe, at least a little bit, in things you can't see but know what are there. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's even good. To live in a world with room for mystery, for magic, for danger, for the numinous and the terrifying and the sacred all mixed together. To know that reality is bigger than what you can touch and measure, that there are things beyond human understanding still operating in the world, that the old powers haven't entirely faded. It makes the world larger and more dangerous and also more meaningful. Every sunset might be beautiful, sure, but it might also be when the Nereids emerge to dance, when the portal streets activate, when the Vrykolakas rise from their graves. Every smile might be friendly, but it might also carry the curse of the evil eye. Every old building might be architectural heritage, but it might also be haunted by centuries of dead who never left. Living with that awareness, that's what the Greeks have been doing for thousands of years, and now you're doing it too. The plane levels off, and the captain announces cruising altitude. You close your eyes, exhausted in a way that sleep won't entirely fix, and you let yourself drift. Maybe you'll dream of Greece. Probably you will. You've dreamed of it every night since you arrived. But you're less afraid of those dreams now. The Bleeding Stone, the Black Rock Portal, the House of Lost Souls, the Mermaid Sister of Alexander, the Vrykolakas, the Kalakansaroi, the Nereids, the Immured Wife, the Minotaur, Zeus's Cave Guard, Aeons, the Ghost Warriors, Helios's Blessing, and the Colossus's Remnants, the Evil Eye, the Thessalian Witches, the Healing Serpents, the Spectral Ships, Poseidon's Sacred Caves, and Sappho's Tragic Cliff. All of them are part of you now, woven into your understanding of what the world is and how it works. They'll appear in your dreams, probably, and in your thoughts, when you're walking alone at night, and in the stories you'll tell friends who won't quite believe you, and in the way you'll notice things other people miss. The way shadows fall wrong, the way certain places feel heavy, the way some people's eyes linger too long with envy. You've learned the lessons Greece teaches best. Respect the dead, honor sacred spaces, believe the old stories, protect yourself with symbols and rituals, never underestimate the power of myth and understand that beauty and danger often share the same face. You've learned that some places hold their history so tightly that the past never quite becomes past. That some stories are so powerful they continue generating themselves. That some warning should always be heeded. You've learned to look for the signs, to trust your instincts, to know when a place is dangerous even if you can't explain why. These aren't the lessons you expected from a vacation, but they're the lessons you got. And they're probably more valuable than any postcard or souvenir could ever be. The witch's words come back to you. Greece remembers everything. The land remembers. The stones remember. And now you remember too. You're a keeper of these stories now, a witness to The fact that they're not just stories, but living phenomena, still active, still dangerous, still shaping the lives of anyone brave or foolish enough to encounter them. When you tell people about your trip, and you will tell them because how could you not? Most of them will think you're exaggerating, or that you got caught up in local superstition, or that you have an overactive imagination. That's fine. That's probably safer for them anyway. Believing in these things makes you vulnerable to them. Knowing their names gives them power. Better that most people stay skeptical and stay safe in their materialist worldview where ghosts don't exist and curses are just coincidence and dangerous beauty is only a metaphor. But you know different. You know that in Greece, at least, the supernatural is natural, the mythological is actual, and the legends are just history that hasn't been properly documented yet. You know that the old gods haven't entirely left, that the monsters haven't all been slain, that the curses are still act. That the dead are only sleeping, not gone. You know that beauty is often a trap, that silence can be a warning, that some invitations should never be accepted, that some questions should never be answered honestly, and that respect for things you don't understand is the price of survival. These are old lessons, the same lessons humans have been learning and forgetting and relearning since we first started telling stories around fires, trying to make sense of a world that's fundamentally mysterious and dangerous and magnificent. Greece just happens to be a place where those lessons are still actively taught, where the curriculum includes both ancient philosophy and practical demon avoidance, where tourism and mythology exist side by side, where you can drink coffee in a cafe that's 500 years old and also learn how to remove the evil eye from the woman at the next table. It's a place where the modern and the ancient haven't separated the way they have in most of the world, where the rational and the supernatural still coexist in uncomfortable proximity, where crossing the street might mean crossing into a different dimension, where every shadow could be a ghost and every stranger could be a witch and every beautiful coastline could hide things that want to pull you under. And somehow, despite everything, despite the terror and the curses and the very real danger you faced, you're already planning to go back. Not immediately, not soon, but eventually, because Greece got under your skin, into your blood, and once it's there, you can't quite get it out. Once you've walked those streets and swam in that water and breathed that air, thick with history and myth, once you've brushed against the supernatural and survived, you're marked. You belong to Greece a little bit, and Greece belongs to you. It's a dangerous relationship. Definitely not healthy by any convention, all standard, but it's yours. You've earned it by surviving. You've earned the right to return, to walk those cursed streets again, to test yourself against those old powers, to see if you can be even more careful, even more respectful, even more aware. Or maybe you've just developed a taste for danger, for that particular flavor of terror that comes from encountering things that shouldn't exist but do. Maybe you're addicted to that feeling of walking the knife's edge between rational and supernatural, between tourist attraction and genuine threat, between beautiful paradise and nightmare landscape. Maybe Greece has ruined you for normal places, for countries where the legends are safely dead, where the only thing knocking on your door at night is the wind, where the only curse is traffic, where the only monsters are human. Maybe you need now to know that the world is bigger and stranger than it appears. And Greece is where you can remember that. where you can feel small and vulnerable and alive in a way that normal life doesn't allow. The flight attendant announces the meal service, and you accept the tiny tray of mediocre food grate fully. Normal airplane food, normal airplane routine, everything exactly as expected with no supernatural interference. It's comforting. It's also a little bit boring, a little bit disappointing. You've been living on adrenaline and fear for weeks. Your senses heightened. Your awareness expanded. Every moment, potentially the moment something impossible happens. Settling back into normal life, where things follow predictable patterns and make rational sense and don't try to kill you. That's going to be an adjustment. You'll probably find yourself looking over your shoulder for a while, jumping at shadows, expecting something supernatural that never comes. Post-Grease stress disorder, you could call it. The psychological aftermath of surviving a place where reality is negotiable and danger wears a beautiful face and the dead refuse to stay dead. But you'll adjust. Eventually, the immediacy will fade. The fear will become anecdote. The terror will become story. You'll tell people about Greece, about the legends and the curses and the things you saw, and they'll laugh and think you're being dramatic, and you'll let them think that because it's easier than insisting on impossible truths. The blue eye amulet will become just jewelry, the witch's protection bag, just a weird souvenir, the memories, just memories. You'll look at your photos, ancient ruins, beautiful beaches, stunning sunsets, and they'll look normal. They'll look like every other Greece photo ever posted on social media. The supernatural doesn't photograph well. The danger doesn't show up in pictures. You have no evidence except your own experience, your own memory, your own knowledge of what you survived, and maybe that's appropriate. Maybe the supernatural should be unverifiable, unprovable, known only to those who've experienced it directly. Maybe that's part of what makes it sacred, what preserves its power. If it could be measured and documented and explained, it would become just another fact. And a other data point, drained of mystery and meaning. Better that it stays in the realm of story, of legend, of things that might be true or might be superstition, but can never quite be pinned down either way. Better that each person has to discover it for themselves, has to walk into those dangerous places and encounter those dangerous things and decide for themselves what's real and what's not. That's the journey Greece offers. The real journey beneath the tourist itinerary. A journey into uncertainty, into the spaces where rational explanations fail, into the acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, the old stories are true. Your eyes are getting heavy now, lulled by the plane's engine hum and the exhaustion of weeks spent in hypervigilance. You let yourself relax into your seat. Let the tension drain from your shoulders. Let your breathing slow and deepen. You're safe here, 30,000 feet above the earth, suspended between Greece and home, belonging fully to neither. It's a liminal space, an in-between place. And maybe that's fitting. Maybe you're an in-between person now. Someone who's seen behind the veil, who knows that the myths are still living, who carries protective amulets and believes in curses and will never ever answer the first knock. You're not quite the person you were when you arrived in Greece, and you're not quite a local who's grown up with these beliefs. You're something else. A witness, a survivor, a person who's been changed by contact with the numinous and the terrible and the ancient. Sleep pulls at you, and you don't fight it. You drift down into dreams where you're walking through Thessaloniki's upper city streets, where shadows move with purpose and intent, where beautiful voices call from the sea, where every door you knock on echoes with the promise of something impossible waiting on the other side. But in the dreams, you know the rules now. You know how to survive. You know when to run and when to stay still, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to look and when to turn away. You know the protection prayers and the warding symbols and the correct and swears to dangerous questions. You've learned Greece's lessons, and in your dreams, you navigate its supernatural landscape with something approaching confidence. Not safety, never quite safety, but competence. The competence of someone who's survived once and might survive again. The plane flies on through the night, carrying you away from Greece's sun-soaked islands and shadow-filled streets, carrying you back to a world that doesn't believe in mermaids or vampires or Christmas goblins or dimensional portals or curses that topple buildings, carrying you home to a place where the dead stay dead and the myths are safely contained in books, and the supernatural is just a genre of entertainment, not a living threat. You're going home, but you're bringing Greece with you, in your amulets and your memories and your changed understanding of what's possible in this strange, bow-tie-full, dangerous world. Greece's legends aren't trapped in Greece. They travel with believers, with witnesses, with survivors. And you're all three now, so yes, you wouldn't have lasted a day facing Greece's urban legends if you'd gone in blind, if you'd dismissed the warnings, if you'd ignored the signs and violated the sacred spaces and answered the wrong questions. You wouldn't have lasted a day if you'd treated it all as superstition and story instead of lived reality. But you did last. Not just a day, but weeks. You learned, you adapted, you respected what you didn't understand. You accepted help from strangers and protection from unlikely sources. You survived because you were willing to believe, willing to take the warning seriously, willing to adjust your understanding of reality to accommodate things that shouldn't exist but do. That's the secret, really. That's how you survive Greece. By believing before you see, by respecting before you understand, by accepting that the world is stranger and more dangerous than you knew, and adjusting accordingly. The plane begins its descent, and you drift up from sleep slowly, gently, reluctantly leaving dreams of Greek streets and Aegean waters. You're almost home. Almost back to normal, almost safe. But somewhere in the deepest part of you, in the place that now knows better, you understand that you'll never be entirely free of Greece. The legends have marked you. The stories have claimed you. You're part of them now, and they're part of you. And that connection, forged in fear and wonder and respect, will never fully break. You survived Greece, but more than that, Greece survived you. The legends continue. The dead remain restless. The curses are still active. The gods still watch. And somewhere in the Aegean, a mermaid still asks her eternal question, waiting for sailors to give the right answer or face her rage. And you carry the knowledge of all this with you, a responsibility and a burden and a strange kind of gift. You know now that the world is bigger than it seems, that magic and danger and beauty are often the same thing, that the ancient powers haven't entirely faded, that respect is the price of survival, and that some places, some very special, very dangerous places, still exist at the intersection of myth and reality. Greece taught you that. Greece showed you that. And now you know. Now you remember. Now you believe. And that makes all the difference. That's what lets you survive, what lets you return, what lets you navigate that dangerous, beautiful country where legends walk and dead don't stay buried, and the gods still pay attention when you call their names. Sweet dreams, traveler. You've earned them. You survived Greece, which is no small thing. Rest now. The legends will wait. They've waited this long, centuries, millennia, forever. They can wait a little longer for you to heal, to recover, to gather your courage again. And when you're ready, when the memories have softened enough to seem bearable and the terror has faded enough to seem exciting, Greece will still be there, waiting. The cursed buildings and portal streets and haunted houses and vengeful mermaids and hungry vampires and mischievous goblins and dangerous nymphs and ghost armies and sacred caves and spectral ships and diving presents and ancient curses and powerful witches and healing serpents and tragic cliffs. All of it still there, still active, still waiting for the next traveler brave enough or foolish enough to test themselves against legends that refuse to die. But that's a worry for another day. For now, you're going home. You're safe. You survived. And that's enough. That's everything. Rest easy, knowing you've seen wonders and horrors that most people never encounter, that you've walked in the footsteps of gods and heroes and monsters, that you've survived something rare and dangerous and magnificent. Rest easy, and maybe, just maybe, leave the blue eye amulet on, just in case, just to be safe, because you never know. You never really know. And that's the final lesson Greece teaches. Certainty is an illusion. Safety is temporary. And the world is far stranger than anyone admits. But you can survive it if you're careful, if you're respectful, if you believe, if you pay attention to the warnings and honor the old wisdom and never ever answer the first knock. Sleep now. Dream of sun-soaked islands and blue water and ancient ruins. Dream of beauty without danger, of Greece without ghosts. Dream peacefully. You've earned it. You've faced the legends and lived to tell the tale. And that makes you part of the legend too. A small part, maybe. Just a footnote in the vast tapestry of Greek mythology and folklore. But a part nonetheless. A survivor. A witness. A believer. And maybe someday a return visitor, brave enough to walk those dangerous streets again. To test yourself once more against powers older than civilization. To see if you remember the lessons. If you can survive a second time. If Greece will welcome you back or finally claim you. But that's tomorrow's worry. Tonight you rest. Tonight you're safe. Tonight the legends can wait, and the dead can sleep, and the gods can watch over someone else. Tonight you're just a tired traveler coming home from a trip that changed everything, carrying memories and amulets and knowledge that will mark you forever as someone who knows, who's seen, who's survived. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. So close your eyes, let the last of the tension drain away, and rest. You've earned this peace. You've survived Greece. And that's no small thing. That's extraordinary. That's legendary. Sweet dreams, brave traveler. Sweet, well-earned dreams